just put you there. Hi guys, thanks for watching. Today I thought I would make a video about how to write your own wedding ceremony script. I really recommend that you have a script that your officiant can read word for word, because when people start going off script, it can get a little bit crazy, it can go too long, things get forgotten, so it's good for your officiant to have something, an actual script, word for word of what they're supposed to say. A lot of people will disagree with me, but I have been to long, rambling weddings where it just didn't work out. It didn't sound as meaningful and professional as it could have without a word-for-word script. And you also make sure that your officiant is covering exactly what you want to cover in your wedding ceremony. Of course, weddings vary a lot depending on what culture you're from and what your religious background is. So this is just sort of a template of millions. There's so many different ways you can write your own wedding ceremony script, but hopefully this one will help some people out. I'm also hopefully making it really, really easy for you by dropping some links below to some sample scripts that I have on my blog, and also like a ceremony guide that you can just go ahead and download, a PDF guide. And remember, you can always change it in a lot of different ways to hopefully design something unique and not the same as every other wedding ceremony you've ever been to. So it should be pretty easy to write your own wedding ceremony and not something to stress out about. All right, so the first thing you're gonna wanna do, and this will be easier for some people than others depending on how invested your partner is in helping you with the wedding planning, but really you need to get on the same page as your partner and write your wedding ceremony script together. So right now, before anything else, take a look at both of your schedules, find a time that works for both of you, and set up like an actual date to write your wedding ceremony. You can make it fun, like have some drinks, have a coffee together, but make sure you carve out like an actual date and maybe like a couple of hours or an hour or whatever, however much time you have to sit down together with your partner and do this at the same time. If you have a partner who's just kind of like giving you free range on this and is like, no, you do it, really like try to convince them to do it with you, because this is both of your wedding ceremony and you should both be involved in the writing of the script. I would personally do this by setting up a Google Doc. So make a Google Doc that you can both share, so you both have like editing privileges and you can both make changes along the way, but you can just as easily use a piece of paper. Once you guys have a date set up and ready to go and you're ready to write your ceremony script together, the first thing you want to do is brainstorm your list, both of your lists of non-negotiables. What are the things that you absolutely want to have in your wedding ceremony that you're not willing to give up, both you and your partner? So if there's a processional song that you've always wanted as you walk down the aisle, or a reading that you've always wanted to include in your wedding and you're not willing to give that up, make sure that you put that on your list of brainstorming wants or must-haves. All right guys, and now it's time to make an outline of your wedding script. So I'm gonna give you a really basic outline you can use right here. These are all of the things that are used in like a quote typical wedding ceremony, although there are, like I said at the beginning, a million different ways to have a wedding ceremony, so don't feel like you have to follow this outline exactly. You don't. You absolutely don't. You can change things around, you can remove things, you can do something completely different. But if you're at a loss, go ahead and follow this outline and start to fill it out with the wording that you want to use. If you have absolutely no idea what wording you want to use, don't worry. You can use one of my sample scripts. Like I said, I'll link that below, and then just tweak things that fit you and your partner. So you'll see a lot of these elements on my suggested script are like the welcome remarks, where you would just introduce, the officiant would just introduce you and your partner and maybe tell a cute little story about both of you. When I say ritual of some kind, this is usually like a hand fasting ceremony where your hands are joined together. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't worry. You can Google how to have a hand fasting ceremony, or I also have a link for how to do a hand fasting ceremony, which I'll put down below. Or like a wishing stone ceremony or a sand ceremony. So you don't have to do this, but that's what the ritual part means in this outline. All right guys, wedding readings. You don't have to do wedding readings if you don't want to, but if you do want to do wedding readings, they can go one of two ways. One, either they're super boring and everybody's eyes kind of glaze over and they space out for the whole duration of the wedding readings, or two, they can be really sweet and nice if they're well chosen and they're meaningful to you as a couple. I've also mentioned before on this channel other ways of doing wedding readings, like you can tell your wedding readers to choose their own readings and surprise you. You have to really trust them for this, but it can be way more interesting if you let your readers surprise you. Or you can do something cool that my sister-in-law did. My partner gave more of a toast at his sister's wedding, wedding, so he went up there and just said some words that he had written down, instead of going the traditional route of reading something that somebody else has written. If you're at a loss for what kind of wedding readings to choose, I'm going to go ahead and put up some suggestions on the screen right now for wedding readings that I think are really cool and sweet. I have also taken a lot of time, like weeks, compiling wedding readings of all different kinds on my blog. I'll put some links below. So these are wedding readings for traditional weddings, wedding readings for nerdy couples, wedding readings from movies, from music. So there should be something there for everybody to choose from. Suggestions for choosing your music. If you're using the outline that I suggested, you're gonna need between 2 and 3 songs for your wedding ceremony. So 2 songs for walking in. Usually it's like 1 song for the wedding party and 1 song for the bride, although that can totally change depending on the makeup of your wedding ceremony. And then 1 song for the recessional. And that's usually like a more upbeat, happy song when you're leaving. If you have no idea what songs to choose, I'll go ahead and also put some suggestions up on the screen. These are some commonly used songs, but I really think you should go for your for what you believe in, what songs you love, and songs that represent you guys as a couple. For your wedding vows, I highly suggest you write your own because it'll just make your wedding ceremony that much more authentic and interesting for your guests to watch and memorable for you. But if the thought of saying your own vows terrifies you, go ahead and use one of the sample scripts with traditional vows down below. A few last tips to keep in mind as you're writing your own wedding ceremony script. You cannot over communicate. Talk to your officiant a lot during this process and let them know explicitly and often exactly what you want or what your expectations are. They can't read your mind, and you really need to let them know. Print out your wedding ceremony script. Print it nicely and put it in a binder or a folder. Don't rely on technology. Don't use an iPad or a phone, and it'll just look nicer. Do a rehearsal of some kind. It doesn't have to be a fancy event. It doesn't have to have a dinner after, but do a rehearsal of some kind, even if it's the morning of your wedding. It'll make everybody feel so much more relaxed, and it'll make everything go way more smoothly. Get a microphone. Even if you think you're not gonna need a microphone, even if you're like, it's a really small venue, we don't need a microphone, get a microphone. Trust me, get a microphone, especially if you're planning on getting your ceremony on video. And you should be left with a perfectly beautiful, authentic wedding ceremony script. I hope this was helpful, guys. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Whew, it's hot. Too much hair for the summer.